I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from April 8th. Second. All in favor? Okay, he just wants to sign his copy of it in front of me. All right, we got an ADA update. They've been working over in the community center with the bathrooms update. I believe the toilet's been changed. Some of the grab bars have been changed. He's continuing to work over there. Hopefully we'll have it done, wrapped up in the next couple of weeks. We'll go ahead here, right?
Yeah, this is also.
So we just the threshold. So. Hey, I'm gonna put this in there. But. You're good.
That's fine.
So, all right, we have North Conway Scenic Railroad. Floor is yours, sir.
Yes, sir. I sincerely appreciate this opportunity to address the board and these fine people. I want to share a little PowerPoint with you showing what Conway Scenic's about, and then what we're thinking it would be a great opportunity for the town of Brownfield. And hopefully the technology works. We're going to certainly give it a shot here. So, the Conway Scenic Railroad, it's been in business for 51 years now, and we really kind of refer to it as an economic development engine. Now, that's something that I didn't coin the phrase. We bought this railroad in 2018, and we're actually the third owners of it. Now, the first owner was Dwight Smith. He was like the Walt Disney of the Conway Scenic. He was a man with vision, and he ended up starting this whole thing. And then Russ Seabolt and Dot Seabolt were the second owners. And Dot managed Settlers Green, which is hundreds of thousands of square feet of retail space. And she coined that phrase because before the railroad, it was a very seasonal community. And the railroad brought life to the community, and where now you can support retail 12 months out of the year. So that's the little phrase of that. 51 years in business, operating from a 1874 depot. The original roundhouse is there. Everything that was there originally in 1874 is still there. And really, it's a world-class attraction. We have people from all over coming to see that railroad. #1 scenic railroad in the United States by oyster.com. #2 attraction in New Hampshire by National Geographic. The only thing that beat us out was the mountains themselves. And #7 scenic railroad in the world by MSN Lifestyle. All great ratings and great things. Now, let's see if the technology is going to work. It may or may not. We've had this problem before. Oh, please, please. It's a great little video. If it works, it works. Technology at its finest. Well, maybe that's not going to be happy. The challenges of life. We have Verizon, and there is a challenge. Well, crazy. It's a great video, and it talks about the railroad. So, sorry. So, I'm to connect this thing up. So we're trying to save the mountain division, and the reason for this is that Conway Scenic, since we bought it in 2018, we're able to double the size of the company, and that's a great thing because I want to make sure that we set a course so 50 years from now, Conway Scenic is not only going to survive, but it's going to thrive. Now, the challenge of the day with what we do now is we need 76 employees to run that railroad the way it is. Because with the tourist trains, you have to maintain the cars, you have to maintain the engines, the track, everything, and then you've got to do marketing. There's a whole flock of people. So our thought is that let's do a freight division so that way we can take that money to support the Heritage Railroad for long into the future. So the thought process is to reopen the track between North Conway all the way to Portland. Now, why is that a good thing? Well, the thing is, now I'm not knocking trucks, but trucks, especially in bad traffic on two-lane roads like we might have here, is not a great solution. There is a big safety advantage to rail over truck. It's like 16 times more injuries on truck versus rail. Now, the other side of this thing is the amount of energy that takes. So this thing here came from the Environmental Protection Agency. So rail is 1.7% of the amount of pollutants as compared to like trucking is 23.4%, cars are 58.5%, aircraft 8.5%. So freight rail is at 1.7. That's because it consumes so little amount of energy to move a freight train. It's really kind of amazing. So when you think about it, like even with a big long freight train that should go up and down hills, so part of the train is pushing the front of the train up the next hill. It's kind of like a roller coaster effect. It really works great. The only thing that beats all of this is passenger rail. And so that's great for a tourist railroad, but not so much for what we're talking about today. So when you think about this, if you were to apply the mileage per gallon that a freight train gets, it's about getting 470 miles per gallon with your car. So that's like the differential. So it's really kind of amazing how little energy it consumes. So we want to reduce the cost of high volume products. So when you think about that, obviously there's a lot of food that moves, a lot of steel, aggregate products, cement, salt, all kinds of things. And the reason that those things are cheaper is because every train car is 4 truckloads, right? So you think about a 100-car train, that's 400 truckloads of material that are getting moved. And somebody came up with this really great thing that if you didn't have the railroads in the United States, there'd be 83 million trucks that you have on the road that you don't today. Big number. So when you look at the existing businesses that are on the line, so the folks at the lumber company down there, the steel company in Freiburg, all those guys can benefit because right now the steel gets railed into a facility and it's a 15-mile trip with a truck to bring it to Freiburg. So obviously, if we have rail in Freiburg, we can unload it right there in about 1.5 miles instead of 50. So it sounds pretty good. On the lumber side of it, there's been millions of dollars spent down there, and we want to support that. And what happens with this is that when you go ahead and have truck, you maybe have a 500-mile radius that you can transport and cost effectively do it. By rail, you can bump that up to 1,000 to 1,500 miles. So it allows that lumber company, Robinson Lumber, to go ahead and sell their products a lot farther across the United States or even into Canada. And the thing is, it's so much cheaper. So if you look at per ton on a train versus per ton on a truck, the train's about $70 a ton to move stuff, and the truck is about $214. So it's a big savings for business to go ahead and use freight rail. So we want to bring new jobs to our towns. And my background, so I've owned the company since 2018. I was able to double the size of the company in the first 6 years. And that was a heavy lift to do. And considering we had COVID we were still able to do that. Now, why is that important? Because I took the seasonality out of the company. They used to lay people off for 3 months out of the year. I took that away and I made a 12-month-a-year operation so we can bring young people to the company and keep them employed for their whole career. We do in-house training, we train our employees, and we want to give those young people opportunities to grow with us. So that's what we're about today with Conway Scenic. When we're talking about freight opportunities, and I pointed this out, this one facility, which I have a better thing here, that one facility, I helped create that in Westfield, Massachusetts, and I want to share that one place with you because I looked up what it paid for property tax last year. It was $450,000, that one Lowe's facility. Now, in my career, we created two of these facilities for Lowe's, one in Frostproof, Florida, and one in Westfield, Massachusetts. So that doesn't mean that Lowe's is just going to come here. But the point is that the railroad was the reason Lowe's located in those two locations because they wanted good rail freight service. And these are real world things that we can go ahead and try to recreate along this line between Portland and North Conway. And also we're going to expand existing tourism opportunities. We're absolutely going to do that. It's the mainstay of our business. So once the track is up to a standard where our tourist train can run on it, then we're going to go ahead and explore those opportunities as well. Now, there's that Lowe's facility again. I mean, just look at it. It's beautiful, pristine, and even like to the building to the left, that's kind of separate. That's another rail serve facility that we created. And the point of this is that through my career, I've done a lot of these facilities, and it's all possible. So the big game changer, the thing that has made this possible is CSX buying the Pan Am Railways. And there's that phone again. Phone because it's actually working versus meeting. Must be Verizon. It is? Oh, wow. So you've got a better plan than I do, obviously. So here's the thing. Back in the day, the Boston and Maine Railroad was bought by an investment group. And B&M, it was in Massachusetts, feeders into Maine and New Hampshire, that they were in bankruptcy for years. So an investment group buys that, and then they bought the Maine Central, and they started diverting traffic and money to support the B&M. So that was great for the B&M, not so great for Maine Central. Because Maine Central was a vibrant company. It was making money for many, many years until that happened. Now, the big game changer is that whole big thing, which the latest name was Pan Am, after the airline for some reason, that was bought by CSX. Now, CSX has invested over $100 million in track repairs in Maine to go ahead and bring that railroad up to speed. And that's opening the door of opportunity for guys like me to connect with it. Because when you think about it, the main line is wonderful, but it's only as good as the branches that feed it. And this railroad here could be a branch that's feeding CSX. Now, one of the things that I was looking at is that you guys have this transfer facility. And from talking to Mr. Day, it's costing the town money every day. I had a hand in creating a facility, not this one, there's multiples like this, where you could take that transfer station and change it to a cost so that's something that could make the town money every year. And the point of this is that for years, facilities like in Boston or New York City have been transporting trash by rail. So the reason they do that is because they don't want to have landfills contaminating their aquifers. Not a great plan, especially when you think about it. Maine exports its aquifer. So having 2 layers of plastic protecting that for hundreds of years, maybe it's not the best choice. So that facility in Boston, it has sortation, so that way the trash comes in, it gets sorted out. This facility in Holyoke, I had a hand in this one, and also a sortation. So that way you're taking the extractor bottles and the things that you can, or the metal out of it, so that way those aren't being put in a train car for being disposed of. Millbury, another facility, same kind of thing, sortation. Taunton, another facility. And these things have been running for years now, trouble-free. And that's the whole key to this. It's not reinventing the wheel. It's something that's proven technology that, other communities have been using for a long, long time. Now, sometimes they bale the waste, they squish it in, and they put a wrapper around it so that way the trash, nothing leaks out of it. Because that's the catch-22 of trash, is that a little bit of everything's in there, and it could be ketchup leaking out, or it could be Lysol leaking out. Who knows what's in there? So That's one way to deal with it. And the other way, which is kind of neat, is these green containers are actually liquid cannot get through them. So they stuff them full from the top, and then they actually put a lid on. So as you can see that fellow on there, they put a lid on that, and then that goes with a container handler onto a flat car. Now, where these things go, and it's kind of neat. So in the Northeast, you got to dig a hole to put it down. So already you're costing money digging a big hole. What they do with this trash is they bring it to reclaimed strip mines out west. So we have a strip mine, we've got this giant cavernous hole, and you can't just leave that hole. They want people to bring it to grade. So what they do is they line those old strip mines, they put the trash in there, and then they put a layer on top, a plastic layer on top, and then they recover the dump gas that comes off the trash for decades, and they generate clean electricity with it. So at the end of the day, it's doing something good. So this is at one of those sites. They take another big machine, they unload it from the train car, and then they put it on a vehicle like that. And it's basically an articulated dump truck without the body. And then they actually bring that container right into the working face for the landfill, and they dump it out. And then of course the empties are brought back. Now here's another thing other than aquifer is PFAS. This is a disastrous mistake which has happened, and it's not just in Maine, it's contaminating thousands and thousands of acres of farmland. That's not a good thing, because those are forever chemicals. And I've heard tale that they like went ahead and harvested a deer that was up here in Maine, and it had those chemicals in it from eating the grasses that are on the fields. The problem is they were dumping sludge from wastewater treatment plants, not thinking, and on these fields. So that's a major problem across the whole United States. So not only do we protect our aquifer, but we also take these kinds of things and put them in a location where you're not going to get it back in your food supply. And that's a real important concern to be considered. A little very complicated map of this, and you'd never think that once these little plastics and these chemicals get in your food, that they just transfer and go back and over and over and over again. And when you think about it, when folks are really getting sick nowadays, you get something to do with this, because people weren't made to be consuming plastic and chemicals for their whole life. So I want to talk about the mountain division. So Conway Scenic in the mid-90s restored the New Hampshire section of the mountain division without use of any federal money, and it took a year to do that. Now, this is a bit of a heavier lift because this has been sitting for 40 years, and that was only sitting for about 10 years. But I included some pictures of the work that the guys did, and a lot of that work was by hand. And it was just a tremendous lift. But at the end of the day, Conway Scenic did this. We've already demonstrated the ability to fix track. And I've got a lot more equipment now than they ever had, because I'm investing in our company. So, I mean, look, we're putting a bridge in over there. We cross that bridge every day now. So we've already demonstrated the ability to do this, and we have better machinery today to facilitate doing this part. So we've got, currently we operate at 53 miles of track. So I'm looking at doubling the size of the road again. But again, we've demonstrated the ability to run this. In 2022, we did 35 miles of ties and ballasts. That's a pretty awesome thing. These are just some shots of us doing that work. That's one machine that I don't own. I own most of the machines. That's a very expensive one. That's about $1 million. And that straightens out the track automatically. And the reason I don't own it, first of all, you got to buy the other thing. That's a problem. But then the other problem is you need to have a really good operator who knows how to run computers and a good mechanic. They have a full-time mechanic. But like that machine there, I bought that one. It was rebuilt with a warranty from Knox Kershaw. That levels the stone on the track. We do have this tamping machine, which is less sophisticated than the other one. And so we can operate that without problem. Telehandlers, that's a tie handling machine. Us putting out ties out on the railroad. that young man there, the one on the right, I'm very proud of that man. That man started out with us as a janitor. That man now is construction foreman. And I worked personally 1 year with that young man to get into that position. Very, very proud of him. And that's the thing we're trying to do. We're trying to give opportunity to young people to grow with the company so that way they can have a bright and prosperous future. But after we're rebuilding that track at Sawyer's River, completely new. A lot of good people. Like I said, I've got 76 employees at this point. That's a tie handling machine. That's a small tie inserter that we've had for many years. Some of our trucks, I was so proud of these guys, they washed them, so I took a picture of it. You know, in the wintertime, it's kind of a challenge. That machine there, that's custom made, that has all kinds of different attachments. It actually has we just bought a feather buncher head so we can reach out, cut a tree without a chainsaw, grab the tree, and harvest the trees so that they can be used for power plants. Instead of leaving them in the woods, we bring them back and we use it that way. And we just got these today. We bought 2 high production tie inserters to go ahead and do this job going to Portland. Those machines, they tell me they put 1,900 ties in a day. So I kind of holding my breath on that to see if that's possible, but that's what they say. So got 2 of those. So there is my presentation. There's other opportunities that we can go ahead and work on. So you could have a question, this gentleman, fine gentleman here wants to have a question on what other things the railroad should carry. So the low-hanging fruit for the town right now, for your community, is that transfer station, because I really think that it can earn money for you every year. That's a positive. So right now it's costing about $180,000, if I remember correctly. So you can take that and then make that something that earns money. But then there's other opportunities. Like the next thing I work on right now is propane. The thing with propane is that propane goes to these big terminals. So the train goes from a refinery to a big terminal. The local heating guy doesn't own that terminal. Mostly it goes to that third-party guy, that big company. They unload the train car, they put it in their tank, and of course the meter's running when they're doing that. Then it has to go in the big tractor trailer, and then that goes to the home heating guy. So you're adding all these layers of people making money on the propane. Now, my thing is back in the day, the propane dealers used to get their cars themselves. So they could buy the car from the refinery, and then it goes and they could unload it on the side of the track. That is a way to stabilize the propane distribution in this whole area, but also reduce the price of the propane because you're taking the layers out. You're taking those big players out. And when you think about it, a little home heating guy, he could do a position. He could buy some cars in the summertime. It makes a lot better opportunity. Now, of course, we talked about Robinson Lumber in our presentation. I can increase their market share by providing them with more potential customers. That's a great thing. Is there a possibility to take some of the water trucks off the road? I don't know. It's a conversation that needs to happen. Right now, there's about 125 trucks of water that go up and down this highway a day. That's a lot. Can we do that? Of course, we can have a conversation with them. Do they build another bottling plant? Maybe with rail service, that's an opportunity. Not exactly sure. Definitely Harmac Steel. That's gonna help those guys because they can get rail very, very close. But at the end of the day, what we can do is by saving this rail line, we can bring opportunity to the table that we don't have currently. Now, with that said, how are we going to do this? So I went down to Washington. I've been down there a couple of times now, and those folks don't quite know what to make of it. Well, and actually, I'm going to just so that way everybody can kind of do the chat. So here's the thing. I went to Washington, and I was meeting with the higher ups of the Federal Railroad Administration, and they have something called the Christie Grant. And with that Christie Grant, you know, they want all these fancy studies and everything. It's just wonderful. It keeps the consultants going nicely. And I said, well, I don't want your money. And they kind of looked at me like I had three heads. I said, no, I don't want your money. And actually, my wife was there to witness all this. And I said, well, what I'd like you to do is I'd like to give New Hampshire DOT and Maine DOT some money to buy materials. So, and I said, if you would care to study how a tie is made, go right ahead. You go and study that, or how a spike is made, whatever that is. But the railroad's been there for 150 years, and you don't need to study the railroad being there for 150 years. It's a proven thing. So now, granted, it hadn't run for 40 years, but it ran for a lot longer than it didn't run. And the point of it is that those materials, the money for the materials goes to the two DOTs, and then they give us the materials to install. And I'll install them at my cost. Now, why am I doing that? Because this is kind of like silly. I don't need a grant to be paid millions of dollars to do this. Why am I doing this investment? Because I want to go ahead and get Conway Scenic not only to survive the next 50 years, I want it to thrive. And I think by adding freight, it gives us that ability to thrive. So that is what I told those folks. And I'm going to go back and reinforce that point that I am looking for the opportunity. Give me an opportunity to be successful. And the big difference, the reason we're asking for the materials is because the New Hampshire section that took 1 year to rebuild was sitting just for 10 years. This has been sitting for 40 years. So it's unrealistic to expect me to try to create how in the world can I get those materials just on my own? But I can install them on my own. And that's what I'm prepared to do. Now, granted, we want a long-term agreement on the railroad. And because I want to secure Conway Scenic's future for the long term. So I definitely appreciate your time and consideration. This is near and dear to my heart. That company, and I'll just share this one last little bit. So 51 years ago, I was a little boy in that class. And my mom and dad, they were good folks, they were hardworking. During the day, they worked as accountants, and at night they tried to run my grandmother's farm. It wasn't a good business plan. So we were visiting up there, and we were looking at the old man and the mom. And my dad picks up a brochure for Conway Scenic, and he said, "Hey Dave, we want to go ride this new train." So we drove over from the old man and the mom, and we missed the last train of the day. Now, my mom and dad did not have money for a train ticket in a motel. They slept in the car with me that night so I could ride behind this railroad the next day. And then working hard, and I always had a great full-time job, and I always had like a machine shop on the side and working on the side. And I was able to buy this railroad in 2018. And that's the American dream. And that's why I feel so strongly about this. So anyways, thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
One question.
Yes, sir.
Working in the factory, you have to have a rail come into the factory.
Yes, sir.
It's half a mile from the main line.
Yes.
It costs $1 million to put that in.
It's not cheap.
Yeah, okay. And that was a half a mile. You mentioned the dump. I don't know how far the dump is from the rail line, but.
Go a rock,
No,
to go a rock, hit the track, it's on.
Yeah, it's right on it. And that's why, I look at this, when I look at properties, I look for opportunities. Now, obviously, we want to see, are there other developable properties that are along the line for other uses? Because what we'll do is we'll catalog those, and then we'll start marketing those for potential rail users. But when I saw that transfer station, I said to myself, there is the opportunity, because what it's doing, when you think, step back a moment. So right now, I'm thinking of creating two of these facilities, one in Maine, one in New Hampshire. Now, that's my vision. We'll see how that plays out. In New Hampshire, there's a moratorium on landfill creation, which is great, except for when the landfill fills, there's no place to put it. That's that issue going on in my home state. In your home state, you've got this issue that the costs of trash are going up every year, And then you've got this PFAS issue. So when I look at an opportunity, if we create two of these facilities, so what happens, your town, if we create a facility there, gets revenue from that trash being put on those trains. That's a revenue source for you. Then also what interestingly happens is the state of Maine DOT gets a percentage of the freight move. So they earn money from it along with us. So it seems like a great solution. It helps your community. It helps both states with these larger, bigger issues. And obviously it's helping the railroad at the same time. Did you have a question?
Yeah, how fast does this train go?
So here's the thing. Initially, we're just gonna go like 10 miles an hour. Now, the reason for that is that I deal with reality, and the track needs to be better the faster you go. So you gotta put more ties in, you gotta put more ballast in. Now, eventually, the train will go faster, but we're gonna start at 10 and then we're gonna work our way up. And that's the thing, when you're not using public funds on gigantic scales, right? So when you talk to a big company, they're up here somewhere, right? Well, this kind of person, right? So you gotta deal with reality. And reality is you go slower and then you slowly build the railroad into something that you want in the future. That's why initially we wouldn't run the tourist train here, because the track needs to be really, really nice for that.
I know, it's in my backyard.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
So, I should mention that I was on the Railroad Use Advisory Council, and we did have a whole process that was followed to study the various options for the rail and for potentially putting in a trail. So for the rail to be restored and go 10 miles an hour at the time, now this was 2 years ago, and for the rail to be restored up to 10 miles an hour would be $52 million. To go beyond that, restored for 25 miles per hour would be $60 million. You had talked about the possibility of a rail alongside the trail. That would cost $148 million after restoring the rail and putting in the trail. The feasibility study that was done showed what potential economic impact there would be with a trail being put down until it made sense to restore it to rail, if that should ever happen. And the economic feasibility was based on the Eastern Trail being expanded and the number of users and all of that, and found that the recreational value in a bike trail or a multi-use trail being put through the towns was 2.2 million per year. And that's because of the number of people who use it. And we've done trail counts to show how many people use it, what those people spend money on. And because of that, many of the businesses in the town of Brownfield wrote letters of support for the trail instead of the rail. So my question would be, what is the benefit to Brownfield and all the towns along this rail line? I understand the benefit to the Conway Scenic Railway, which I love, and I love trains. But for these towns along this line, what is the benefit? You mentioned our transfer station. We're the only transfer station that is near the rail, any of these 9 towns, which means they're not going to move their transfer station next to the rail. And you're talking about ideas of various businesses that could be profitable at some point, but those basically are ideas. There's no one committed to using a rail whatsoever. So it sounds like the expectation is that Maine taxpayers would be paying to restore this rail, and folks like you are going to have freight trains going through their backyard instead of a bike truck going through their backyard. Is that what you want? Do you want propane tanks and garbage trains going through your backyard when you could have a trail with people riding bikes, walking strollers, a safe place for people to ride bikes in town, which we don't have now? The Board of Selectmen have signed a letter supporting the trail. Over 200 letters of testimony were submitted. 97% of them said they wanted a trail, not a rail. Recently, 21 letters were sent in just from people from Brownfield to support LD 676, establishing funding for this. There's 21 letters, only 2 supported rail, all the rest wanted trail. So I just wanted to, what's that?
And then both.
Well, to have both would cost 148 million. Those are the costs 2 years ago. When the feasibility study was done. There are also 23 water crossings, bridges along that route. So it's going to be environmentally disruptive and very expensive. Trying to put the
Who owns the property now?
the main DOT.
The Maine DOT owns the railroad track.
Yes.
Okay, so that's their property. So you would have to buy it from Maine DOT?
No, what we would do is we would lease it long term. And so, and that's, and at the end of the day, so that gives Maine DOT an opportunity to earn revenue long term. So to your points, and there was a few of them there. So in relation to the cost of railroad rehabilitation, what happens with this, and not discrediting anyone, but when you have a big engineering firm come through, their price is going to be way up here because they don't look at it as an operating company would. An operating company just deals with reality. So what we're doing is I've got our staff and our consultants out there. They're walking the line and they're creating a bill of materials. So you have to start from somewhere. You don't want to just start from this pie in the sky kind of number because if you do that, then you can't realistically achieve the goal of fixing the track. So we're going to walk the railroad. We're going to create a bill of materials, and then based on that bill of materials, then we'll go back to the guys down in Washington and say, listen, this is what we think this is going to take. And again, there's no profitability built into that where I'm providing the services to install those materials. So that comes down at a much lower price point. I can't tell you what the number is right this second because you need the bill of materials. So that's the process that we're following. Because it's funny. Our engineer has been in the rail and grid engineering business for over 20 years now, and he kind of has this thing that any fool can spend $150,000 fixing a $15,000 problem, and that's the reality of it. That when you look at a for-profit company, we use engineers that provide good solutions versus engineers that provide Taj Mahal solutions that are easy to figure out, but hard to pay for at the end of the day. As far as the trail with the rail, now, I can't really comment specifically on locations, but there is a mindset. If that's something that is really wanted, there's workarounds. You don't necessarily need to follow the right of way. If there's a water course or something where there's a fill, you can always go to a public grade crossing and then use the public right of way that is part of the street to get around that and get to the next public grade crossing. So there's other solutions to that. When we talk about economic impact, I know that Conway Scenic's economic impact is $40 million per year. Now, granted, we've been in business for 51 years, but when you look at that 40 million, it took me 6 years to increase that by $20 million a year. That's not money I get, that's money that the communities get based on tourism. You know, when you go into the Cambria Hotel that was built brand new over in Conway, there's actually 3 hotels built in 1 year. You go to the Cambria, and there's a mural of Conway Scenic behind the front desk. Now, I don't own that hotel, but they recognize that, you know, we bring so much opportunity to the table. So, and when you also look at this whole thing with the trail, on a federal level as well as the state level, rail preservation is the ruling of the day. And trails can be built alongside or really anywhere. There's already thousands of miles of trails that pre-exist in Maine. And I'm not saying that a trail is a bad thing, but at the end of the day, you're building an infrastructure that is free to use for anyone. And, you know, what I'm proposing here is infrastructure Especially if we did this transfer station that earns money for your community every year, as well as earning money for New Hampshire DOT or Maine DOT. So, and yes, of course, I'm in there because, we are a for-profit company and I have right now 76 families I have to support. So any other questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah, just like to say for information purposes, in the March this year, they had March, Main City Telegram, March 9th, they do a comparison of what it costs to automobile costs, accidents and everything else. And they give an explanation of why rails and trails, could be a good thing. Why rails are a good thing to offset all the automobile transportation, the accidents, cost of that. Lake Living, and I don't know when it was, so I think it was last year, did a thing up, but they have a lot of history on the railroad in it, which is interesting, and information on the trail. And the other thing is, Maine DOT, their program on it, they state in their program for the trail that any non-use rail use of the Mountain Division corridor will be considered interim in nature, and the corridor must be preserved for future trail use. So if you do rails to trails, it's sort of rails and trails, then it sort of helps preserve it. But that's just informational and people are interested in it. But yeah, this was a real good article showing the real cost of automobiles. Actually, Maine is 5th highest in the country for automobile accidents. Believe it or not, it's the highest in New England. So, and it's compared to the world, it's really up there too.
Aren't we pulling up the trail?
Pardon me?
Are we pulling up the rail?
Well, the rails probably have to be pulled up anyway because they're not usable, I don't think, from what I've heard. But the thing is, they're putting the trail where the rails are, which maybe they could put the trail beside the road. And then they're paving it, which if they further convert it to rail use, then there's all that waste of the paving. There's thoughts that, it makes it more handicap accessible, but there's Rachel Carson, the wildlife preserve in Wells, and that's all done with gravel dust. And they actually have wheelchair tours in there. So you don't have to pave it for wheelchairs, and if they don't pave the trail, also including Freiburg, they would have saved 7.3 million if they didn't pave it as opposed to dust, according to DOT. But anyway, rails and trails is a feasible thing economically, if people are interested in doing it that way, and for all the safety issues,
So I think one thing that's important to mention too is that the rail itself being there facilitates the use of automated equipment to fix the track. If the rail's not there, there's so scratched, and then you will spend a pile of money because it's just the way it works. Like, all the machines that we have, even at our level, they need the rail to ride on in order to put new tires in or to camp or all that. Now, that doesn't mean that at some point in the future, the rail's not changed out. What we run now, we change rail, every year. But again, it's a process. It doesn't want to immediately happen. Any other questions?
Do you talk to the people before you're gonna, like, I would want a fence up next to near me if you were gonna put a train going down there. Is that something you talk to people that are close to the train?
So, in reference to fences, I'm not sure what the current situation is. I know that back in the day, roads had fences, but are they still in existence? I'm not sure. So I think we'd have to cross that bridge when you get to it, especially if you've got livestock or something.
I have a dog and that's my
Okay.
concern.
Yes, ma'am.
So I did want to mention that, the trail alongside the rail sounds like a great idea, but it costs 7 times more than just putting a trail down. And there is a feasibility study that you can go online and look over, and an engineering study is the next step. And what the Maine DOT would do would decide where fences would be important or necessary based on residents' needs, and also issues like, drop-offs and so forth, to be safe for people using the trail.
Like,
Why, they're
If I were-
7 times more just because you put it on a rail.
To restore the rail would cost,
No, he's talking about doing that himself. You were talking about.
he's talking about doing part of it
A
himself.
lot of it.
Yeah, but it would cost 52 million to restore the rail, and then on top of that, to build the trail, it's another 70-80 million to build a trail alongside, because you're building a whole separate infrastructure if you're putting a trail in alongside the rail.
The Frogburg Trail, and I don't know why, but he knows, that has a rail right alongside it.
Right.
Yeah.
Is there a reason why that rail still is there? or-
I can tell you why it's still there.
Uh-huh.
So that was the easiest part of the route to do,
Right.
because there are no water crossings and there was enough space to put the trail in alongside the rail. So people were happy to do that. This is a whole different story, from Freiburg all the way down to Wyndham. I mean, just think about that land going through there. There's all kinds of ponds and water crossings and places where the rail is right next to the road. It's a whole different story, and this is the most expensive part that would be done, because for all that.
That's what it was,
Yep.
but I mean, it seems like it's been recent, it doesn't look like it's bad a shape as what's in Brownfield, the rails. I don't know if anybody worked on it, but it's just curious. Thanks.
Any other questions?
Yes, sir.
Isn't it true, like they're also grandfathered in, so in the future, our future generations would be accountable for the funds in the future when we might not have an individual with a machine shop and all the means to help make this happen anyways. Well, it's, Rick Bennett told us our towns, all the communities along the way have enough time to clear this up with the Rails to Trails Committee as well, and the DOT and everybody, to clear this up and get on board, get these fences on their property and everything beforehand through the Rails to Trails. And they could collaborate with somebody like this coming to our community to help us out, because we're the first town on this Rails to Trails program since Rick Bennett came to town and told us the project's starting here in Brownfield.
Well, the other thing is, once the state's done building the trails, they turn over the maintenance responsibility to towns.
And that's what I'm gonna.
So, I mean, if
Yes,
you had a
next.
rail going with it, maybe the rail would maintain some of the.
That's what I wanted to ask
Maintenance.
next. If we
Yeah,
could
I know,
communicate with an outside
Yeah.
entity or whatever language it is of getting on board to acknowledge native species and everything, and a permaculture design to attend to what most of these communities are worried about, the upkeep of the trail, If an outside entity or person was willing to fundraise and get ahead of that, so that the communities like Brownfield, we're the first town that would have to spend money if we don't have to make our taxpayers pay for it, you see what I'm saying, and lower their taxes because they're now on the property and we're planning for this and they're on the rail. Now their taxes, unless they're tied in to making money off the trail, they don't pay hardly any taxes because they're now didn't decide to be having a rail behind them like that, or a walking path too. Some people don't want the walking path, but the reality is the rails have a priority and they're established and part of our history before the trail. The trail would never be there if it weren't for the rails, and the rails and us, our community and everything have to advocate for these national spaces. Brownfield is the most biodiverse area and ecologically
Yeah, I think so.
tended to by this project, you see what I'm saying? So we gotta establish that right now. We're the worst issue, the rest of it is already taken care of by the time it gets down to Portland, you see what I'm saying? That's not I could ask them, or
Yes, sir.
What has Maine DOT and Maine government? Have you spoken to them to see what they're thinking? Because
Yeah.
there was a referendum a long time ago for $1 million buyout, and the state owns the railroad lines. So we've had multiple, studies, we've had multiple committees. Years ago, you know, it was, design was thought for Sedago Four Corners, and the Portland Water District ended that. Possibility of contamination, things of that nature. So that went away, and what we have, you know, legislation that's come out, and monies, state funding that is doing these rails to trails. So I'm curious, what is the state representation telling you? Because this has been going on well over 30 years in Maine. I don't know New Hampshire. So I'm curious as to what the political view is and the representation that you're getting from the state of Maine.
So at this juncture, Maine DOT has asked us to provide a proposal for rebuilding the rail line and the operation of the rail line. So we're currently doing that. So we've got our engineering folks out there next week, and they'll be walking the line and coming up with a bill of materials. The bill of materials is necessary because what I want to do is come up with the cost of this thing, the real root of it. And then first plan is I want to go down to Washington again and sit down with those folks. And again, it's not lobbying for federal dollars for me. It's lobbying for federal dollars that will benefit me. But I want the money to be given to Maine DOT and New Hampshire DOT for the parts necessary to fix the railroad. And then I'm volunteering my resources and my labor to put those parts in. Now, the other side of that is that we want a long-term agreement for operating the railroad for my contribution. Now, what the scenario does as it plays out is it eliminates the need for a state match for both states or a local match from any community for getting that work done, because my services are worth more than the match would be. So that's the scenario that I see that's going to be playing out. I can't comment as far as timeline because there's a lot of other people beyond me that are involved with that process. But I think it's a way forward that we can achieve this in a reasonable fashion. I don't see somebody coming along and saying it's $60 million to fix a railroad. But doing it the bare bones way, you don't need to, because I'm not a contracting company that's making millions of dollars on this. I'm just taking my personnel and my machinery and some hired out stuff, and we're just going to put those resources to task to make this happen. So that's where we're at right now, sir.
So just Maine DOT. Do you have any senators involved? Do you have any of the governmental representation?
Yeah, so we've appeared multiple times in front of the Transportation Subcommittee, and Jason Briggs, we actually we own the VIP Tour and Charter Bus Company is another business that we have. Jason Briggs, we've employed him full time to deal with government issues because he knows all these folks. So Jason has multiple trips to Augusta and multiple trips to Concord to try to pull people together to get a better understanding of this. And then also we made 2 trips so far to Washington, again, to educate them on what we're trying to accomplish.
Sure.
Now, this is not a normal thing on the Washington front. They're used to people asking for piles of money and not saying, well, no, I want you to give these 2 DOTs money for materials. So it's a little bit different course, but I think if we are persistent enough, we'll prevail on that. So
Don't go to Dover.
Just tell away the front of the other team.
Thank you for coming to speak, and do you have, since you've set up those sorting facilities before, the trash sorting, what was the revenue that was generated off of?
So here's the thing, we were the railroad, so as a transportation provider, I don't have access to any of that.
Okay.
You know, we can certainly find out, and, you know, and that's, I think if this is the direction that the board would like to go in, I think what we should do is identify a facility that we could tour. And that way you can see firsthand what this thing is all about. Because obviously, it's an income source, but also, you know, there's a commitment. I wouldn't necessarily suggest you running it. You might own it, but probably having a third party run it. But at the end of the day, that I think would be the next logical step. Because to your point, sir, you know, you really need to know what the numbers are. And I know what the freight side is, I wouldn't know what the operational side would be. Yes, sir.
Just one question. Say you get authorized through the federal government.
Yes.
What's stopping the state of Maine from going through?
Well, here's the thing. The Rail Preservation Act, which is a legislation that Maine put in place, is protecting these rail corridors for rail use. So the advent of them saying to stop is kind of in violation of their own statutes that they put in many years ago. The catch-22 of railroads is that railroads have preemptive rights, and the reason they have preemptive rights, it's a nationwide network. So rail here is rail in California, rail here is rail in Mexico, rail here is rail in Canada. So it's a huge network. You know, everybody kind of needs to work together to facilitate keeping that whole network going. You know, the westward expansion was created by the railroads and the federal government. You know, so that, think about it, that's huge. Down the other part of the Mississippi was there because of railroads. So that's what started this whole process back in the day. So I think that's the answer with that. And you had a question?
Yeah, so, the Maine Rail Preservation Act maintains that rail corridor. But that's why this is called the trail until rail. If there's ever a need, or if it's ever economically feasible for rails to be reestablished, then that's what will happen. Trails have been created all over the country on railbeds. None of them have converted back to rail because it's not economically feasible. So it's nice to have all these ideas, but it's no one's committed to having a facility alongside the rail to make it economically feasible to maintain a freight train horribly. And this has already gone to the Maine state legislature. It's already passed. 2 years ago it passed, and now we're at the stage of getting the funding to put the trail in, and it's in the Maine DOT work plan to begin that trail from Freiburg through to Hiram right now. So that's what we're looking at right now. So this is kind of late in the game to want to undo all of that was done first.
So to your point, it is late in the game. I agree with that wholeheartedly. So I started with the RUAC, and at that time, CSX did not own that road, and they did not invest over $100 million in tractor trailers there. There was only one route to get to try to rehabilitate that line. So we looked at the tourism side. We did. And I subsequently bought EAP Tour and Charter Bus Company as a way to prove out if there was enough financial horsepower to rebuild it. There's not to this day. Tourism is not going to pay. It's not going to work. So game changer was CSX purchased that railroad and spending $100 million of their own money in rehabilitating that. Now that makes freight viable. So that's why it is so late in the game. And I do apologize for that point, but that was the real difference. That was the game changer. Yes, sir.
So you're saying where it's late to the game, even though they've got stuff in motion, you can stop the motion. If the federal government and the state of Maine DOT want to, they can stop the motion that's going to redo the trail, to redo the rails.
So when you think, I guess when you think about it, and it's hypothetical, so also to my point, there have been rails ripped up and trails put in. And the reason if you have them being reversed, it's too expensive once they're traveled around. It's just a reality. It's just too much money.
That's not the reason. The reason is that there's no business benefit to put those rails back in. If there was, they'd find a way to do it. But I don't think that you can tell me one single spot that they wanted to put the rails back because, let's say there was a mining operation or a quarry and they were going to make, hundreds of millions of dollars. If there is a reason to put those rails back in, people would work on it.
There's nobody had enough time. I'd like to note and acknowledge that our Senator Rick Bennett told us we have the say, as we the people, we are ahead of it. Until this project starts, we have a say. Once it starts, we no longer have a say. Brownfield has a say in this project. And we haven't had the right to have all the topics on the table or all the resources that have been brought to us here. We didn't have enough time for the Rick Bennett, who's the spearhead of the Rails to Trails event, to have this. We don't know we have an engineer with a machine shop and the ability to do this. Future generations might not have this ability, but this rail has seniority and priority over the rail. Our senator stated this. You see what I'm saying? We have a chance and an opportunity to get ahead of it. Brownfield happens to be the town where this project is being spearheaded. Brownfield is the town of Brownfield, the citizens and taxpayers. We're the first town, the first community to be affected by this. We have a say right now in this. It's not too late. Rick Bennett told us that we have time to let him know and get the Rails to Trails DOT when they were here for their presentation of this. You see what I'm saying? We didn't have all these variables on the table. We haven't had enough time. I didn't know nothing about it. A lot of people, even people in this room, didn't know nothing about this. So the people that have a say, who need to attend to it before it becomes a lot more costly to our future generations, we can establish this and hold anybody else who wants to do this accountable to work with us and make it happen together. So our citizens aren't paying taxes and they have to leave town because they can't afford the taxes no more because we go with just the trail and forget about the rails that have seniority over, period. The Pequawket people, all these people were forced out because they wanted a rail. They have a rail. Now we have this rail that needs to advocate for the Pequawket tribe and the people that were here before us who were pushed out by the rail. And that's not debatable, so that's a different story altogether.
Just one comment. This whole state runs north and south. If we didn't have the turnpike, where would you be? There's no east and west in the state anyway. And if the rail line was east and west, it would give us another opportunity. If someone wanted to build a highway east and west, think of the prosperity it would bring. I mean, all you gotta do is up and down the turnpike and see what's developed on both sides. If it would bring commerce and factories and jobs.
Keeping our kids.
I mean, we've got hiking trails and we've got kids. I go where.
Good Lord.
And this is somebody that isn't asking us to do it.
This is our state level.
This
is all at a state level.
We the people. Rick Bennett said we could do it.
That's not my point. This is a state level. The state owns the property. The state owns it.
Correct.
The taxpayers of Maine voted in referendum for the state to purchase the rail line.
Yeah.
So they did as such.
Just stipulation of the rail.
So, this is at a state level. It's gonna have a lot to do with politicians.
When is the date when the project starts in Brownfield, the Rails to Trails gonna start breaking ground? Somebody has that information though, because if we're too late, how's it too late if we don't know the date?
Okay.
I did want to say that there have been multiple opportunities for people to provide input, to give feedback. We've had town meetings, it's been on the town website, it's been in the newsletter. You had opportunities to submit testimony online, or if you wanted to go to Augusta and do
We had
so.
COVID and the story, but.
Don't interrupt her.
It's not,
Don't
You don't have the floor. You don't have the floor.
it's not
He does.
several years.
Do not interrupt.
Vinny,
Get it.
everything
Now I know.
was available online for you to submit testimony.
You're wrong.
For LD 440, where the
Your
legislature.
defense and debate holds no weight.
Hey, bring the meeting to order, please.
Point of order. Thank you, guys.
Really, there was a meeting,
I
there was a meeting at the rec center.
I'll clear it up in social media.
No, with the DOT,
I know all about
and I give anybody
talking
the
about the
fellow's
political
name.
tactics being played
No,
against.
I can give anybody the fellow's name from the DOT, his email address if they want to contact him to get more information. I mean, he gave me his card when he was at the meeting.
I know, people
Yeah,
called
so I mean, just say
911.
that it wasn't.
And other people too, so
No, I'm just saying it wasn't.
case is being built. Somebody's gonna have to answer for it.
Yeah.
So that's my reality.
But to finish what I was
Yes,
saying,
So it's not
there's
fun.
opportunities for people to submit testimony. 200 people submitted testimony for that one bill. 97% of them wanted a trail rather than rail. And Rick Bennett said that that was more testimony than had ever been submitted for a bill to the legislature. So
Nobody knew.
people are excited about it.
We were indoctrinated by COVID, we didn't have a clue.
Just a comment from what the board just said. It's gonna be at the state level, because the state owns
Yes,
the rail.
correct.
So whether or not Brownfield has any say or not, it's gonna be determined by the state.
Correct, yes.
Okay.
But we have a say ahead of time. It will start here. Rick Bennett told us that.
Anybody else? Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Good job. Appreciate your time and listening to me. Obviously, I believe strongly about this. And I encourage anybody to reach out to us because, you know, my contact information is with you. Feel free to give it out because it's important.
I've got an old Lionel train set from when I was a kid, if you're interested. It's an old, the heavy cast iron.
So we, Carpenter that's worked for us for 51 years, so I'm pushing the line out.
Oh, does he?
I can put you in touch with them.
Yeah, please.
So it's small.
No, it's not, it's got the, it's named, no, I don't have five little cords of wood for it.
Efficient.
But it's a great train set, yeah.
Beautiful thing. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay, on to the correspondence file. Whoops. First thing is the county budget, which was due September 1st. We have been assessed at
It's on the very bottom, second page 5.
$404,947. Well, make a motion to accept.
Second.
All in favor? Spending the money. I raised my left hand. I ain't the one missing finger. Okay, there's been a change to the town of Brownfield social media procedure. We've added a direct director as having administrative. We should make a motion to accept the changes. Or the change.
Sorry.
All in favor? The reason camera so much, they don't want this paper. It's like cardboard.
Oh. We got a big budget.
$404,000. April 23rd at 9. Travel's insurance, so Alan will be down to go over our insurance. deductibles and what our limits are. That will be here at the town office. There's a help wanted for the public town of Brownfield Public Works employee. It will be put in the Bridgeton News, Collar Sun, and Shopper's Guide, as well as the website and the town Facebook page as well. It is now the Spirit of America nomination is out. We have to do this. When?
I think it's the June.
It expires on June 30th. So we've already made that decision, correct? For the last year, Jess Davis.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so that's been submitted. Could you make sure Jess Davis has been submitted? So if you can respond to this, Ms. Fans. Okay, DOT, the Brownfield Veterans Memorial Bridge passed through the state. When Melissa Cross will let us know when DOT will be coming out to Brownfield to put the signs up on each end of the bridge. So we're good. 16 bridges were passed this year. Can we get clarified which bridge it is? Is it the one on Fenn Hill? Probably. All right, we've been requested to add the mesothelioma Veterans Center. It's part of the town's website. You guys want to take a look at this? I think it's one of those fishing deals. They're out of Chestnut Hill, Mass. Your organization. We're not an organization. This is fishing. Eco Maine, we are due in September. So I say we hold off on this until we get through town meeting. But there's that for the Eco Maine contract. I would say to wait. We're gonna be able to spend on the money rule. Well, this is just it. It doesn't happen until September, and if we opt out, we're gonna save them. Yeah, I agree with that, but I don't want to make a choice until we know. All right. Okay. Yep. Makes sense. Pretty large vote coming in. Sure. Thanks. This coming Saturday, Easter egg hunt and dessert auction at the rec. Sunday, the transfer station is closed for Easter. April 22nd at 6:30 here, Public Safety Building Committee meeting. May 3rd, 8:30 to 12 is the Valley Cleanup Day. I'd like to say something about that. Yes, sir. Who's organized? Usually those rec. Because my wife and I have cleaned up that place. It better be root beer balls. That takes care of it.
Oh, just a reminder, taxes are due May 15th. Thank you. It's 1
Yeah,
month from today.
we need your tax out.
We would actually do it for
Like that, man.
today. What I'll do is, I'll put on the rec sign that playground's closed on the rec sign out in the front.
Big.
People know it's closed.
Could you reach up there?
Yep.
It's right here, it's right here.
How you pronounce it, right?
Anything else?
What's that, no,
Frank, you got that?
Nope, I'm not, so, just Patty.
Aunt Terry had asked me to say something, but she is here, so I'm gonna let her.
Yeah, the budget, yeah, so the school budget,
Yes.
okay, so, I put the wrong date in the newsletter for the school budget presentation, it's May 15th, not May 16th. I'll be putting out another newsletter, I'll correct it there, I think Patty corrected it on the website, and I think somebody put it on Facebook. But it'll be at the Brownfield Denmark School at 6:30 on Thursday, May 15th. So you can come there and get all your questions answered.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Is that it?
Yes, sir.
Anybody?
Yeah, I wanna bring to the attention, I attended the playground committee meeting last night. I joined, stepped up to join the board along with some other community members. Just came, they told me to let you guys know so that we could get, on the board. We have more board members that joined up.
The committee is formed at 11, which is what we set the number at.
What's that?
There's 11 committee members.
Who set that up?
The board of selectmen did.
Okay, well, so how come the community wasn't, informed that there's a committee being formed for the playground committee?
I don't understand your question.
Well, one thing, like, I'm gonna clear this up, I have every right. I understand the reality, policies and procedures there. Understand about the committee being formed. I'm asking all these years I've been here, getting involved with the playground. I presented this stuff to you over the years and I was arrested doing so. My topics are on the table of unfinished business. I'm not here to bother you guys. I could be speaking with a committee that would bring these topics to the forefront. I wouldn't even have to be here. So the resources and stuff that I know about, I wouldn't be busy here, Vincent Carbone, trying to communicate to Ricky Emery. When we have different senses of humor, different forms of opinion, and different perspectives and everything, you gotta remember, you're the one who called 911, had me stripped of my rights.
we put alternates.
I'm the accused. I don't need to talk to my chief selectman. I could work with a board of a board that is a committee and communicate with the committee and bring this stuff to the table to have signed off by the board of selectmen. And I'd like to have you guys acknowledge that I'm the spearhead of these projects, and along with the skate park, I'm the original spearhead of the skate park project. And I'd like to get on top of that and get the committee to make that happen, because I've already made that happen in the past and it was packed every day. And then miscommunications happened and it doesn't exist anymore. And I make it exist again.
There was another fellow with the playground committee meeting, Tim, who, I think he's the director at Storyland. Is that what you said, Tom? Yeah, and he's interested in being on the committee, so it's only an 11-member committee. Is it possible? I don't know, put alternates on there, like, have 2 alternates?
Yeah.
Just because I'm on the committee,
Yeah,
anybody can come to the meetings and give suggestions. They don't have to be on the committee. They can address it to the committee so they can pawn it over and stuff. That's what the committee is for, so public information can come. But people have to realize it's gonna be taking in a lot of information, so you can't bombard the committee, but you can make suggestions and give us time to react to. And give us time to react to
Over
it,
the
because
years, exposed that this would have been done a long time ago. The committee was already formed by me, and I'm the one that made this a reality and brought this all to play. The committee wouldn't exist. We wouldn't have a community center. That's the reality of. Wouldn't have reality. We're in. Who was accountable to fix all this stuff? Bill Flynn acknowledged that as chief selectman, he signed off and he's the one held accountable, where this money disappeared into the general fund and didn't do the job that was supposed to be done.
Take it down.
I do not have to. How about somebody else talk to me then? I don't need to talk to you, tell me to take it down. There's a need to, because you're part of the issue and you use political tactics. You're in bed with making this happen. With other people who will tell you to shut your mouth
Okay.
and not understand you have a right.
Hey. It's in order. This meeting will be in order.
Not by you.
Vinnie, you need to leave.
And I will.
Thank you.
Be
Have
prepared
a good day.
to step down from your seat because now you're recalled.
Okay.
Litigation issues, this is a 1983 tort, abuse of authority against me. Bernie cleared this up. Chief Selectman Ricky Emery, please leave. You're on notice. The clock's ticking. Time to step down. You're done. Please leave. This dude's a tasty treat. You're done, dude.
Anybody in this community can gladly take my position.
Step down, and I will.
Why do I have to?
Because you're gonna be recalled. You gotta wait 2 more years
Do the roster.
to be campaigned against for being moved in with Sheriff Wainwright and your friends who are in the crowd fucking playing games.
Whoa, all right, you're done.
Leave now. You're done. You leave now. Language I want. Well, I'm leaving. You're the chief. You want me to, you guys all want me to leave?
Yeah, I do.
Full horse and order.
That's me,
No,
That's
you don't
you.
know the procedures of democracy.
okay.
Will you go to 911?
Yes, sir.
I'll wait. Okay. Oh. Your faction, Main Street. Church every Sunday at Eric Walker's house. Sorry. 911. Public records are on all the body camera footage and everything of the collusion of Chief Ricky Emery colluding with Deputy Donald Formic and Sheriff Wainwright.
No, he's got his phone and filming everything and all that, yeah.
What's the call for? Is that 911? That's an emergency service. You guys realize that.
I'm sorry.
Frank, you understand what's happening here, right? Remember all the stuff I've brought to the table over the years. My right to know my accusers, that's my accuser in court. You don't understand.
Vinny, right now you have way out of order, way out. You
No,
can't be swearing at people.
I swear until the end after he brought this to me. You should have told him to stop talking to me. You're the one that exposed it all. You're the guy that said, you're the ones that are gonna be held accountable to.
You're rude. That's all you have to realize.
What have you guys done?
You're rude.
I'm always called on you.
You were rude.
You don't know what you're
Somebody
talking
was
about.
talking.
Period.
If your wife was talking and somebody interrupted her, what you said.
When you threaten.
I didn't threaten you. You weren't there.
Well, I thought
I
what's crazy, you don't know, you get these people from out of town that are part of dealers.
You're in the meeting?
You were running. They're exposed. Criminal.
City.
I'm leaving. Leave. Get your act together, because I'm cleaning. What? Point of order. And remember that.
Vinny.
Point of order. I have a right to call a point of order.
You. Have a good day. Thank you.
Criminal dictator.
Yep.
Chief.
Sure am.
Replaced Bill Flynn.
Yes,
And was appointed by the concerned citizens.
yes,
Who campaigned for him.
yes.
Any other questions?
Chief,
Greg, have you talked to him? Who's like, no, I was talking about, that's a lot.
I did not. Did you hit us up after actually,
Yeah, okay.
because that was already a motion. So we're good. Hit us up after the meeting.
Awesome, guys.
Anybody else? I'll apologize for the,
You shouldn't
I didn't,
else's actions.
well, I didn't expect that. I thought I was being all right.
I've never seen it. Don't
Who's on the
understand.
agenda?
I got a question,
In regards to.
how do you address or try to calm down a citizen that outbursts like that, that is attacking the board, but he's going specifically for one board member, but he's attacking the board, and he won't even listen to the calm citizens trying to get him to calm down. But yet he wants to be on certain committees the committees aren't gonna work with him if he's like this. So what are the committees supposed to do if he shows up? How do we
Same.
handle him?
Honestly, the same way that I did. You know, all the committees that are formed by the select board in service to the town are appointed and created by the select board. They're advisory to the select board for whatever reason, i.e. the playground. That committee is going to come up with ideas and pricing and placement and, you know, all the to-do in order for the town to do a playground.
Right.
You bring that committee's gonna bring it to the board. That's why it's critical that you have a chairman, just like the public safety building. Chief is the chairman. The chief brings the information to the select board. It's advisory. All the decisions are made here at the board level, and it's done publicly. Nothing's hidden.
I understand that. I'm just trying to figure out how any committee is supposed to deal with any citizen that has an outburst like that.
I'm glad you asked the question, because, man, it's been,
I mean,
other
he could
than
have,
my
he
1
could
year
have,
off.
he could have an outburst and there might be somebody that can't control himself. Then what?
It is what it
then-
is, you know, hopefully it
Right.
doesn't get that far.
There's, in every town, there's a Vinnie.
Well,
That's, no matter what.
Still go, man. This town has 3 biddings. This town has 3 biddings. We're way over our limits.
So,
But I mean, there's outbursts are happening everywhere in the country now. There's a lot of outbursts happening everywhere that people have to deal with.
and he has a right to
Should-
speak
Yeah, oh yeah, it's just the new.
and just be asked to leave.
But everybody else has a right to speak too. And he doesn't have any right to cut them
But
off.
he shouldn't be. They should, any citizen shouldn't interrupt another citizen when they're speaking. And he just decides he wants to do point of order. And he's gotta give the person who's speaking their time before he can speak his time.
But the Maine State Moderator's Manual, which is what every
For
meeting
town meeting.
follows, addresses people who are out of order, basically, yeah, and how to deal with them. yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry, you guys have to.
I would say
That's incredibly.
try to keep it simple and try to keep moving forward with whatever committee motion. That would be my suggestion.
Okay.
Tolerance to an extent. Anybody else?
Sorry. No,
Just have, okay. I will make a motion to adjourn. Second, all in favor? Thank you, folks.
thank you, everybody. Thank you.
All right, Greg.
Yes, sir.
Just go back.
Good. Railroad.